The Lagos sun was setting over Victoria Island, painting the sky with shades of orange and purple that looked like expensive oil paintings. In a luxury apartment on the 15th floor of Echo Pearl Towers, Shedere stood in front of her massive mirror, applying her signature red lipstick with the precision of a surgeon. She was 28 years old, very beautiful, and dangerously confident in her power over men. Her wardrobe was filled with designer clothes that she never bought with her own money. And her bathroom counter was covered with perfumes that cost more than what some families earned in 3 months. Shedere had a reputation that made married women whisper her name with fear, and single girls look at her with a mix of envy and disgust. She was known across the island as the woman who could take any man she wanted, regardless of his marital status or how many years he had been married. Tonight, she was getting ready to meet Emeka, a successful banker who had been married to his wife Adaeze for 12 years with 3 beautiful children at home. Shedere's phone buzzed with a message from Emeka saying he was on his way to pick her up for dinner at a 5-star restaurant in Ikoyi. She smiled at her reflection, adjusting the tight black dress that showed off every curve of her body. She had perfected the art of being irresistible, knowing exactly what to say, how to laugh, when to touch a man's arm, and how to make him feel like the most important person in the world. Her friends often asked her why she only dated married men, and her answer was always the same, with a cold laugh. Single men are broke and confused, but married men know what they want and they have the money to pay for it. She believed that she was smarter than the wives who stayed at home cooking and cleaning while their husbands were out building empires. In her mind, she was simply collecting her own share of the wealth that these men had to offer. What Shedere did not know was that every married man she had stolen came with a price tag that was written in invisible ink. She did not believe in karma or spiritual consequences because her life seemed too perfect and blessed. Her apartment was paid for by a married oil executive. Her car was a gift from a married politician, and her monthly shopping allowance came from a married real estate developer. She moved through Lagos like a queen, dining at the best restaurants, attending the most exclusive parties, and flying first class to Dubai whenever she felt like shopping. The single girls in her former neighborhood on the mainland called her their role model, asking her to teach them her secrets. But the married women in the churches and mosques prayed daily for her downfall, asking God to expose her and bring shame to her doorstep. Emeka arrived in his black Range Rover, his wedding ring safely tucked in the glove compartment as usual. He was a handsome man in his late 30s with a well-groomed beard and expensive cologne that filled the car. As they drove to the restaurant, he kept one hand on the steering wheel and the other hand on Shedere's thigh, completely forgetting about Adaeze, who was at home helping their children with homework. Shedere laughed at all his jokes and made him feel young and desired in a way that his wife no longer did after years of marriage and motherhood. Over expensive wine and grilled lobster, Emeka complained about his wife, saying she had become boring and only cared about the children and church activities. Shedere listened with fake sympathy, touching his hand across the table and telling him that he deserved to be happy. This was her usual script, and it worked every single time without fail. What Shedere did not see was Adaeze sitting in her bedroom that same night, staring at her husband's credit card statement with tears rolling down her face. Adaeze had found receipts for expensive dinners, hotel rooms, and jewelry that she never received. She was not a fool, even though Emeka treated her like one. She had given up her own career as a pharmacist to raise their children and support his ambitions, and now he was spending their money on a woman who did not even know the names of his children. Adaeze's hands were shaking as she called her mother, a strong Igbo woman who had been married for 40 years and had seen everything. Her mother listened quietly to her crying and then spoke in a voice that was as hard as iron. "My daughter, stop crying like a weak chicken. That girl does not know what she has entered. Every marriage has spiritual coverings, and when you break them, the consequences are waiting." For 3 months, Shedere and Emeka continued their affair with increasing boldness. Emeka started coming home later and later, sometimes not coming home at all, claiming he had emergency meetings or business trips. He showered Shedere with more gifts, including a diamond necklace that cost 2 million naira and a weekend trip to Cape Town where they stayed in the most expensive NSIVE hotel. Shedere posted carefully cropped photos on Instagram, making sure not to show Emeka's face but showing enough luxury to make other women jealous. She was living her best life, or so she thought. She ignored the warnings from her own mother back in Aba, who kept calling to tell her that the path she was walking would lead to destruction. Shedere would hang up the phone and laugh, believing that her mother was just old-fashioned and jealous of her success. But something strange began to happen in the middle of the 4th month. Shedere started having nightmares every single night, vivid and terrifying dreams where she was being chased by faceless women holding burning torches. In these dreams, she would run through dark streets with no escape, and just before the women caught her, she would wake up sweating and gasping for air. The dreams became so frequent that she was afraid to sleep, and her once perfect skin started to break out in painful boils that no expensive cream could heal. She went to the best dermatologists on the island, but they could not explain why her skin was suddenly rebelling against her. Her hair, which had always been thick and shiny, started falling out in large chunks every time she combed it. The beauty that had been her weapon was slowly being stripped away from her, and she was terrified. At the same time, Emeka's life began to crumble in ways he could not understand or control. His boss called him into the office one Monday morning and told him that the bank was downsizing and his position was being eliminated. He had been one of the top performers in the company, so the news hit him like a physical blow to his chest. Within 2 weeks, he lost his job, and his savings started to disappear as he struggled to maintain his lifestyle and continue spending on Shedere. His mother fell seriously ill and needed expensive surgery. But when he checked his bank accounts, he realized that he had wasted so much money on his affair that he could barely afford the medical bills. The pressure was mounting, and his perfect life was turning into a nightmare that he could not wake up from. Shedere noticed that Emeka was becoming distant and stressed, no longer showering her with gifts or taking her to expensive places. When she complained, he snapped at her for the first time, telling her that she was too demanding and materialistic. This shocked her because men never spoke to her that way. She started to panic, realizing that her source of income was drying up, and she quickly began looking for her next target. She attended a wedding on the island and set her eyes on Chike, another married man who owned a successful logistics company. Chike was older, richer, and more established than Emeka, and Shedere saw him as an upgrade to her collection. She approached him with her usual confidence, and within days, they were exchanging flirty messages and planning secret meetings. But Chike's wife, Ngozi, was not like Adaeze. Ngozi was a prayer warrior, a woman who spent her early mornings on her knees talking to God and asking for protection over her marriage. When she noticed her husband's behavior changing, she did not cry or complain. Instead, she went into her prayer room, locked the door, and declared war in the spiritual realm. She fasted for 7 days, drinking only water and praying with intensity that shook the foundations of her house. She called on the blood of Jesus to cover her marriage and asked God to expose every hidden enemy and destroy every plan of the enemy. Ngozi was not fighting with her physical strength. She was fighting with spiritual weapons that were more powerful than beauty, money, or seduction. On the 7th day of Ngozi's fast, something dramatic happened that would change everything. Shedere woke up in the middle of the night with a sharp, stabbing pain in her stomach that felt like someone was twisting a knife inside her body. She tried to stand up, but her legs gave way, and she collapsed on the cold marble floor of her apartment. The pain was so intense that she could not even scream for help. Her phone was on the bed, too far for her to reach, and she lay there alone in the dark, sweating and trembling. Hours passed like this, and she thought she was going to die right there on the floor of her luxury apartment that she did not even pay for herself. When morning came, her housemaid found her unconscious and immediately called for an ambulance. Shedere was rushed to the hospital where doctors ran multiple tests, trying to figure out what was wrong with her. The results came back showing that her body was shutting down for no medical reason that they could identify. Her kidneys were failing, her liver was inflamed, and her blood pressure was dangerously high. The doctors were confused because a young woman of her age should not be experiencing these symptoms without any underlying disease. They kept her in the hospital, pumping her with different medications, but nothing seemed to work. She lay in that hospital bed for 2 weeks, watching her body waste away and her beauty fade like a flower in the hot sun. During those 2 weeks in the hospital, Shedere had a lot of time to think about her life and the choices she had made. She thought about all the married men she had seduced, all the homes she had helped destroy, and all the wives who had cried themselves to sleep because of her actions. For the first time in her life, she felt genuine guilt and shame weighing on her chest like heavy stones. Her phone, which used to ring constantly with calls from different men, was now silent. None of the married men she had dated came to visit her in the hospital because they could not risk their wives finding out. She was completely alone, lying in a private ward that she could no longer afford to pay for. The hospital sent her a bill that made her cry because she had no savings and no one to call for help. On the 15th day, a woman walked into Shedere's hospital room unannounced. It was Ngozi, Chike's wife, dressed in simple clothes with a Bible in her hand and a calm expression on her face. Shedere's heart started racing with fear because she did not know what this woman had come to do. But Ngozi did not come to fight or insult her. Instead, she sat down on the chair next to the bed and looked at Shedere with eyes that were filled with both sadness and wisdom. She spoke in a quiet voice that was more powerful than shouting. "I did not come here to curse you or hurt you. I came to tell you the truth that no one has ever told you before." She explained to Shedere that marriage is not just a piece of paper or a party. It is a spiritual covenant that is sealed in the presence of God and witnessed by the heavens. When you enter that covenant as a third party, you are not just fighting against a woman. You are fighting against spiritual laws that were set before you were born. Ngozi continued talking, her words cutting through Shedere's heart like a sharp blade. "Every wife who cries because of you, every child who loses their father's attention because of you, every prayer that is prayed against you, these things do not just disappear into the air. They accumulate and form a wall around your life that blocks your blessings. You might enjoy the money and the gifts for a season, but the season will end, and when it ends, you will be left with nothing but regret." She told Shedere about the power of a wife's tears and how they go straight to the throne of God. She explained that no amount of beauty or cleverness can protect a person from spiritual consequences. The makeup can cover your face, but it cannot cover your soul. Shedere started crying, Not the fake tears she used to manipulate men, but real, deep sobs that came from the very bottom of her heart. She confessed everything to Ugozi, telling her about all the married men, all the lies, and all the homes she had helped to destabilize. She admitted that she had been driven by greed, insecurity, and a wrong belief that married men were the only way to access wealth. Ugozi listened without interrupting, and when Shedere finished talking, she did something unexpected. She held Chidera's hand and prayed for her, asking God to have mercy on her soul and to heal her body. She prayed that God would break every curse and remove every spiritual attack that was destroying Chidera's life. The prayer was so powerful that even the nurses standing outside the room felt something shift in the atmosphere. After that encounter, Chidera's health began to improve slowly but steadily. The doctors were amazed because they had almost given up hope. Within a month, she was discharged from the hospital, but she was not the same person who had entered. Her once glowing skin was now marked with scars, her thick hair was now thin and brittle, and her confidence was completely shattered. The apartment she lived in was taken back by the oil executive who had been paying for it, and all her expensive clothes and bags were sold to pay her hospital bills. She had to move back to the mainland, back to the small room she had run away from years ago, back to the reality she had been trying to escape. The news of Chidera's downfall spread across Lagos like wildfire on dry grass. The same people who had envied her and called her their role model were now using her story as a warning to others. The single girls who wanted to follow in her footsteps suddenly became afraid, realizing that the glamorous life they saw on Instagram was hiding a very dark truth. The married men who had dated her quickly distanced themselves, deleting her number and pretending they never knew her. Emeka, who had lost his job and almost his marriage, went back to Adaeze on his knees, begging for forgiveness with tears in his eyes. Adaeze, being a woman of grace and wisdom, forgave him but made it very clear that if he ever strayed again, she would not be so merciful. Shedere spent the next year of her life in complete silence and deep reflection. She stopped going to parties, stopped posting on social media, and stopped chasing after married men. She got a simple job as a sales attendant in a small shop on the mainland, earning just enough money to feed herself and pay rent. Her mother came to visit her from Aba, and instead of saying "I told you so," she held her daughter and cried with her. She told Shedere that it was not too late to start over and build a life based on truth and integrity instead of lies and shortcuts. Slowly, painfully, Shedere began to rebuild her life from the ground up, this time on a foundation that could not be shaken. 2 years after her hospital experience, Shedere started a small online platform where she shared her story and warned other young women about the dangers of husband snatching. She did not hide her past or pretend to be perfect. Instead, She spoke openly about her mistakes, her consequences, and the lessons she had learned the hard way. Her platform grew quickly because many women needed to hear the truth from someone who had actually lived through the consequences. She talked about how temporary pleasures lead to permanent pain, how beauty fades but character lasts forever, and how no amount of money is worth the spiritual debt that comes from breaking another woman's home. One of the most powerful lessons Shedere shared was about the difference between being a wife and being a side piece. She explained that a wife has a name, a place, a voice, and a future, while a side piece has nothing but secrets, shame, and stolen moments. She told women that if a man is willing to cheat on his wife with you, he will also cheat on you with someone else because cheating is his character, not his circumstance. She emphasized that real wealth is not found in another woman's husband but in building your own career, your own business, and your own future. She taught that the luxury lifestyle on Instagram is often a highlight reel that hides debt, depression, and spiritual emptiness. Shedere also spoke about the power of a praying wife and how many women had underestimated this force. She explained that a wife who knows how to pray is more powerful than a side chick who knows how to seduce because prayers move mountains while seduction only moves moments. She warned that when you mess with a woman who knows God, you are not fighting against flesh and blood but against spiritual forces that can dismantle your entire existence. She shared her own testimony of how Ugozi's prayers had literally brought her to her knees and forced her to face the truth about herself. This was not theory or church talk. This was real-life experience that she had paid for with her health, her beauty, and her peace. The transformation in Shedere's life became a testimony that traveled far beyond Lagos. Women from different parts of Nigeria and even other African countries reached out to her, thanking her for her honesty and bravery. Some of them confessed that they were currently involved with married men and wanted to know how to stop before it was too late. Shedere counseled them patiently, reminding them that every day spent in sin is a day stolen from their destiny. She emphasized that the first step to freedom is confession, the second step is repentance, and the third step is complete separation from the married man with no contact whatsoever. 5 years after her downfall, Shedere met a single man named Tunde who was a hard-working engineer building his own construction company from scratch. Tunde was not flashy or rich, but he was honest, respectful, and truly available. At first, Shedere was tempted to reject him because he could not offer her the luxury lifestyle she had been addicted to. But she remembered all the lessons she had learned and decided to give real love a chance. Tunde knew about her past because she told him everything on their third date, expecting him to run away in disgust. But instead, Tunde appreciated her honesty and told her that he was not interested in her past but in her future. He saw the woman she had become, not the woman she used to be. Their relationship was built on transparency, communication, and mutual respect. There were no secrets, no lies, and no triangles. Shedere learned what it felt like to be chosen openly, not hidden shamefully. She learned the difference between a man who is proud to introduce you to his family and a man who hides you like a dirty secret. When Tunde proposed to her in a simple but heartfelt ceremony, Shedere cried tears of genuine joy, knowing that she had finally found something real that was worth more than all the designer bags and luxury trips combined. On her wedding day, Ngozi was among the guests, and when the two women hugged, there was not a dry eye in the church. It was a picture of redemption, forgiveness, and the power of second chances. Today, Shedere uses her story to teach young women that shortcuts always lead to dead ends. She reminds them that patience is not just a virtue but a weapon against self-destruction. She tells them that instead of trying to snatch another woman's husband, they should focus on building themselves into the kind of woman that a quality man would want to marry properly. She emphasizes that real queens do not need to steal crowns because they know how to build their own kingdoms. She teaches that self-worth is not measured by how many married men want you but by how much you respect yourself enough to say no to wrong situations. These are the truths that Shedere learned the hard way. And these are the lessons that every woman should learn before it is too late.